Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 18th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap last night's Monday Night Football game between the Bears and the Seahawks. Talk about an NFL trade that happened yesterday. Go over the baseball action from yesterday. Look ahead to tonight's action. Do my NHL goalie rankings to start the NHL preview. And I'll do my weekly NFL power rankings, and I'll do guess the lines for week 3. All right, Monday Night Football last night. The Bears get the first win under Matt Nagy, defeat the Seahawks 24-17. Big time win for the Bears. They had to have this one. They're 1-1. Seattle's 0-2. Mitch Trubisky wasn't great. 25 for 34, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Russell Wilson threw a pick six that single-handedly cost him the game. Other than that, 22 of 36, 226 yards and 2 touchdown passes. This was an interesting game. And then Kamara picked off Wilson and took it to the house. And that pretty much took away any chance Seattle had, although they got the garbage touchdown late at the end. This game kind of reminded me of Giants-Cowboys from Sunday night from a standpoint of Seattle's so bad from an offensive standpoint with the bad O-line, similar to the Giants, except the difference is that the Seahawks have a better quarterback than the Giants right now, and meanwhile, the Giants actually have better playmakers on offense than Seattle. But meanwhile, both teams are so bad with their offensive lines. Each team whiffed on a first-round pick within the last 3 years, and that's why their lines are so bad. You can't whiff on offensive linemen first-round picks, just like you can't whiff with quarterbacks in the first round. Josh Gordon was traded from the Cleveland Browns to the New England Patriots yesterday. There was a report late Saturday night that the Browns were going to get rid of Josh Gordon, whether it be a release or a trade. Bill Belichick stepped up and made a trade for him. I believe a 5th-round pick is going back to Cleveland. Unpopular opinion, I think Josh Gordon's going to help the Patriots this year. I think he's a very good player. He's just been in trouble off the field, which is why he hasn't played, obviously. So I think he'll help them and put up the numbers, playing alongside Julian Edelman once Edelman comes back from his suspension. And now they finally have somebody that can replace Danny Amendola in that offense. So I actually like the pickup from New England, and I think most people are not going to agree with that opinion. All right, baseball. Not many games last night because a lot of teams were traveling. The Blue Jays defeated the Orioles 5-0. The Jays are now 68-82. Baltimore's 43-107. Ryan Brockie with the win. Evan Phillips with the loss. The Mets defeated the Phillies 9-4. The Mets are 70-80. Phillies 76-73. Zach Wheeler with the win. Tommy Hunter with the loss. The Pirates defeated the Royals 7-6. Pirates are 75-74. Royals are 52-98. Edgar Santana with the win. Ben Lively with the loss. The Twins defeated the Tigers 6-1. The Twins are 69-81. The Tigers are 61-89. Cole Stewart with the win. Jordan Zimmerman with the loss. The Marlins defeated the Nats 8-5. The Marlins are 59-91. The Nats are 76-75. Jaime Garcia with the win. Coda Glover with the loss. Adam Conley with the save. The Cards defeated the Braves 11-6. The Cards are 83-68. The Braves are 83-67. Didn't realize that these teams were that close record-wise. Miles Mikolas with the win. Mike Fout the units with the loss. The Brewers defeated the Reds 8-0. The Brewers are 86-65. The Reds are 64-87. Wade Miley with the win. Anthony DeSclafani with the loss. Brandon Woodruff with the save. The Rays defeated the Rangers 3-0. Tampa's 83-66. The Rangers are 64-86. Tyler Glasnow with the win. Adrian Sampson with the loss. Sergio Romo with the save. The Mariners defeated the Astros 4-1, courtesy of a grand slam by Daniel Vogelbach. The Mariners are 83-67, Astros 94-56. Ryan Cook with the win. Hector Rondon with the loss. Edwin Diaz with the save. The Cubs defeated the Diamondbacks 5-1. The Cubs are 88-62. The D-backs are 78-73. Kyle Hendricks with the win. Patrick Corbin with the loss. Funny thing about this game is that the Cubs color analyst, Jim DeShanes, predicted the Chris Bryant home run in the top of the 8th, so that was pretty cool in that game. The Dodgers defeated the Rockies 8-2 to complete the jump to first place in the NL West. They are 83-68. The Rocks are 82-68. Haitian Ryu with the win. John Gray with the loss. Bad news for the Rockies. Trevor Story hurt his hand, or might have actually been his finger, so he might be out for a while. The Giants defeated the Padres 4-2. The Giants are 71-80. The Pods are 60-91. Andrew Suarez with the win. Brian Mitchell with the loss. Will Smith with the save. Tonight's games: 7 o'clock, Red Sox-Yankees. This is supposed to be a 1 o'clock matinee game. They had to move it to a night game because of the weather. And there is still a chance, I believe, that this game gets postponed and there will be a doubleheader tomorrow. Nathan Eovaldi against Jay Happ. Red Sox can clinch the American League East with a win tonight. So that's something to look out for. Blue Jays-Orioles. Aaron Sanchez, Dylan Bundy, Mets-Phils. Steven Matz and Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola has quietly not pitched great over his last 3-4 starts. Quietly inserting himself out of the Cy Young. And part of that is because of the Phillies' recent play, too. So it's Jacob deGrom's award to lose at this point. Royals-Pirates. Eric Skoglund and Jamison Tyone. Jamison Tyone's pitched very well this season. He only had one bad little stretch. If you take that bad stretch away, he'd be in play for perhaps the National League Cy Young Award. The White Sox and the Indians. Carlos Rondon and Corey Kluber. Indians are just playing out the string right now. They have everything clinched. Twins-Tigers. Jake Odorizzi and Danny Norris. Nats-Marlins. Steven Strasburg and Sandy Alcantara. Alcantara's pitched very well for the Marlins. 7:30 ESPN Cardinals-Braves. This is a good one. Austin Gomber and Anibal Sanchez. Tough call here. Sanchez has pitched very well for the Braves this season. I would have thunk it because he was so bad his last couple seasons with the Detroit Tigers. I'm going to take the Braves here to bounce back at home. Although St. Louis needs this game more, the Braves pretty much know that they have the division locked up. So they're allowed to drop a few. Cardinals can't really afford to drop a few because they're fighting with the Rockies and the Brewers for that wild card spot. I think the Diamondbacks are nearly close to being done. The Cubs, I think, are going to win the Central, although the Brewers are still in play for the Central, as well as the Cardinals. If the Brewers and the Cubs somehow collapse and the Cards take off a little bit again, so that can't be ruled out either. Dodgers, I think, are winning the West, although you can't rule out the Rockies there. I just don't trust the Rocks without Trevor Story. 7:40 Reds-Brewers. Michael Lorenzen and Chase Anderson. 8 o'clock Rays-Rangers. Blake Snell and Yvonne Gallardo. Snell's the favorite for the American League Cy Young Award for me right now. Mariners-Astros. Mike Leake and Josh James. Cubs-Diamondbacks 9:40. Mike Montgomery and Matt Andriese. 10 o'clock Angels-Athletics. Tyler Skaggs and Liam Hendricks. Hendricks has been an opener for the A's, it seems like. Rockies-Dodgers. Kyle Freeland and Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw's pitched so well since coming back, and I think that it's being overlooked because of DeGrom's brilliance, and the perception is that Clayton Kershaw's not the same. I think that's true, but it's not like he sucks. He's still a top 10 pitcher in baseball in my mind, and I just think that Kershaw is just not getting the respect that he deserves. And he deserves a lot of credit for this Dodgers resurgence as well. And last but not least, Giants-Padres, Derek Holland and Joey Lucchesi. All right, now I'm going to do the first part of the NHL preview, and that is ranking all the goaltenders in the league. Some of them are backups on this list, and some of them are even third stringers, and those are all mostly towards the bottom of this list. There's 79 goaltenders on this list. I'm going to go from 79 to 1, make it more fun like that. 79 is Scott Wedgwood, Sabres. 78 is Linus Ullmark of the Sabres. Both of these guys are just second and third string guys for Buffalo. 77 is Darcy Kuemper of the Coyotes. 76 is Harry Sateri of the Red Wings. 75 is Alex Nedeljkovic of the Hurricanes. 74 is Eric Comrie of the Jets. 73 is Linus Soderstrom of the Islanders. 72 is Anton Khudobin of the Stars. 71 is Phoenix Copley of the Capitals. 70s is Alex Stalock of the Wild. 69 is Maxime Lagace of the Knights. 68 is Alexander Gurgachev of the Rangers. 67 is Laurent Brossoit of the Jets. He's their second stringer. 66 is Ville Husso of the Blues. 65 is Tristan Jarry of the Penguins. 64 is John Gillies of the Flames. 63 is Anton Forsberg of the Blackhawks. 62 is Michael Hutchinson of the Panthers. 61 is Casey DeSmith of the Penguins. He's their second stringer, I believe. 60 is Curtis McKinney of the Maple Leafs. 59 is Anders Nilsson of the Canucks. 58 is Jack Campbell of the Kings. I believe he is their second stringer. 57, Mikko Koskinen of the Oilers. He's their second stringer. 56 is Ilya Samsonov of the Capitals. He's probably going to be their second stringer this year, considering that they lost their backup in the offseason to the Avalanche. 55 is Zane McIntyre of the Bruins. 54 is Louis Domingue of the Lightning. He's a solid backup. 53 is Aaron Dell of the Sharks. He's a good backup. 52 is Malcolm Subban of the Vegas Golden Knights. He is young but has a lot of upside. He's probably their goalie of the future. 51 is Carter Hart of the Flyers. He's their goalie of the future too. 50 is Peter Budaj of the Kings. I think he's a solid backup. He's their third stringer right now, but I think he's better than their second stringer. 49 is Jonas Korpisalo of the Blue Jackets. He's a solid backup. 48 is Chad Johnson of the Blues. Just a veteran backstop, second stringer. A lot of these guys are veteran backups coming up. 47 is James Reiner of the Panthers. 46 is Keith Kincaid of the Devils. 45 is Al Montoya of the Oilers. 44 is Jonathan Bernier of the Red Wings. 43 is Jimmy Howard of the Red Wings. He'll be their starter. 42 is Andrew Hammond of the Wild. He'll back up Devin Dubnyk. 41 is Eddie Lack of the Devils. 40 is Mike Condon of the Ottawa Senators. 39 is Jacob Markstrom of the Vancouver Canucks. 38 is Michael Neuwirth of the Philadelphia Flyers. 37 is Yaroslav Halak of the Boston Bruins. Now we're going to start to get into some starters and some above-average backups. 36 is Carter Hutton of the Sabres. 35 is Scott Darling of the Carolina Hurricanes. 34 is Roberto Luongo of the Florida Panthers. 33 is Antti Ranta of the Arizona Coyotes. 32 is Antti Niemi of the Montreal Canadiens. 31 is Cam Ward of the Chicago Blackhawks. 30 is Jose Saros of the Nashville Predators. 29 is Philip Garbauer of the Colorado Avalanche. 28 is Mike Smith of the Calgary Flames. 27 is Robin Lehner of the New York Islanders. 26 is Semyon Varlamov of the Colorado Avalanche. 25 is Peter Mrazek of the Carolina Hurricanes. 24 is Ryan Miller of the Anaheim Ducks. 23 is Thomas Greiss of the New York Islanders. 22 is Cam Talbot of the Edmonton Oilers. 21 is Craig Anderson of the Ottawa Senators. 20, this is a bit of a controversial one because I think this guy is probably going to head into the Hall of Fame, but I just think that he's on the downside of his career and has been over the last perhaps 2-3 years, and that's Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers. And same with the guy at number 19, Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins. 18, Brian Elliott of the Philadelphia Flyers. 17, Jonathan Quick, Los Angeles Kings. 16, Corey Crawford, Chicago Blackhawks. You could argue Crawford should be lower because he's been hurt a lot and his play's sort of been declining the last few years as well. 15, Frederik Andersen of the Toronto Maple Leafs. 14, Ben Bishop of the Dallas Stars. 13, Corey Schneider of the New Jersey Devils. 12, this is probably recency bias, but Marc-Andre Fleury of the Vegas Golden Knights. He just seems rejuvenated in Vegas. Or he could very well be in that Henrik Lundqvist, Tuukka Rask stage of his career where he's just in decline. But I just feel like being on that new team rejuvenated Fleury a lot with a better defense around him. And better teammates too, and a good coach and a good GM. I just think Fleury's just in a good situation. So who knows? Maybe that's an overranking come December. And I could be wrong. 11, Jake Allen of the St. Louis Blues. 10, Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens. I debated putting Price lower. I don't think he's the same anymore either. But he's been hurt a lot too. 9, Devin Dubnyk of the Minnesota Wild. 8, Matt Murray of the Pittsburgh Penguins. 7, John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks. 6, Martin Jones of the San Jose Sharks. 5, Braden Holtby of the Washington Capitals. Gotta give respect to the team's goalie that helped them win a Stanley Cup despite him having a subpar regular season. He was just fantastic in the playoffs, helping Alex Ovechkin get his first ring. 4 is Connor Hellebuck of the Winnipeg Jets. 3, Andrei Vasilevsky of the Tampa Bay Lightning. 2, Pekka Rinne of the Nashville Predators. And number 1, in a contract year, Sergei Bravovsky of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think Bravovsky's been incredible. He's been a Vezina candidate the last few years. I just think he's overlooked because he's playing in a small market. And he's just somebody that has just been a rock for the Columbus Blue Jackets over the last couple seasons. And I'm just giving him all his respect and due. Now I'm going to do my weekly NFL power rankings. And while I do these power rankings, I'm going to go from 32 to 1. And I'm going to give everybody my biggest takeaway from every team. 32 is the Arizona Cardinals. Is it Josh Rosen time? I think it should be, but I doubt they'll make the switch 3 weeks into the season. 31 is the Buffalo Bills. Vontae Davis. He's going to have the quitter reputation for the rest of his life because he flat out quit at halftime and said he retired. 30 is the Cleveland Browns. Zach Gonzalez cost him 2 games. The team that's 29 probably should be 30, but the Cleveland Browns are still the Cleveland Browns, and that's why they're still 30. Win a game before you get more respect, Cleveland. And get a better kicker. 29 is the New York Football Giants. I talked about this a little bit when I was analyzing the Seahawks game last night. Their offensive line is just so bad, and no matter what defense you're going up against, you just can't block. You just can't block. Eric Flowers was the biggest bust draft pick the Giants have had probably in the last 10 years. An offensive lineman picked in the top 10 and just absolutely flamed out in year 4. I believe it's his 4th year. Yeah, this is year 4 for Eric Flowers. But the difference between Seattle and New York, and I said this before, is that Eli Manning's 37 and Russell Wilson is still in his 20s. Yes, the Giants probably should have drafted a quarterback instead of Saquon Barkley. But there's a lot of things. Like, I can defend the Giants for making that decision. And I have on this podcast several times. And I just am sick of defending the Giants at this point. And 28 is the Seattle Seahawks. Their O-line is terrible. And they whiffed on a lineman too in the 2016 draft. Jermaine Ifedi, the tackle. He was the 31st pick. And he was from Texas A&M. He is awful. He is the Eric Flowers of the Seahawks to me. Like, they're both team liabilities at this point. And I feel sorry for Russell Wilson. Like, the team pretty much, or I should say the front office, pretty much broke up the Legion of Boom. Richard Sherman's in Seattle. Earl Thomas, I don't think he might finish the season with another team. I think there's a good chance he finishes the season with another team. And the Legion of Boom ain't walking through that door. Doug Baldwin's still around, but he is, to me, not an elite wide receiver. Rashad Penny might be a nice running back, but he was overdrafted, in my opinion. I could just go on and on about the Seahawks. I'm sick of talking about them, too. Them and the Giants. 27 is the Detroit Lions. They showed a little life in San Francisco. You can make a case they should have won that game. Jimmy Garoppolo threw an awful pick that got called back because of a penalty on the Lions. And if that penalty wasn't called, maybe Detroit steals that game from San Francisco and Matt Patricia has a win as a football coach. 26 is the Washington Redskins. What an awful letdown for the Redskins. I am very disappointed in them. A week ago on this podcast, I was saying that they could have been a dark horse candidate to steal the NFC East from the Philadelphia Eagles if Carson Wentz wasn't back in time. But now, they're clearly not. They lost at home to an inferior opponent in the Colts. I'll get to the Colts in a minute, but I still think that the Redskins on paper are better. And Alex Smith, a complete flop of a game. You couldn't find the red zone. I know he doesn't have great receivers. Chris Thompson's a nice piece and could have a lot of all-purpose yards. But what a debacle for Washington. That's 4 NFC teams that, well, Detroit at least showed some life, but 4 NFC teams that have looked awful in portions of the season so far. Obviously, the Redskins and the Giants and the Seahawks all last week. And Detroit was bad in week 1. 25, the Indianapolis Colts. I have to give this team a lot of credit. Good job by Andrew Luck and company going out and getting a very nice road win. Taking advantage of a bad Alex Smith and improving themselves to 1-1. Frank Reich gets his first NFL win. Maybe this is a dark horse team to steal a division, but maybe not, because I'll get to the Jags eventually because they look like they're a contender. But I'm still not buying the Colts. This is probably going to be a 6-10 team. I predicted, I think, 5-11 before the year. I said that Luck would steal a few wins. But maybe I'll look back and say, oh, this is a game that Luck stole. 24 is the Dallas Cowboys. That was a big win for them. If they lost this game, we would have been talking about what are the chances Jason Garrett gets fired before their bye week, and a lot of different subplots could have been in play if they lost this game. But hey, give Dak Prescott and company credit. Dak Prescott really only made one great play in that game, which was the bomb to Tavon Austin to start the game. That didn't do much after that, but he made some nice little plays to keep the Giants' defense on the field. And Ezekiel Elliott was pretty solid in that game. But I have to give credit to a unit that is perceived to be one of the worst in football, but really isn't. That's the Dallas Cowboys defense, just as a whole. Rod Marinelli is probably one of the best 5D coordinators in the sport. And he and his other defensive coaches really called some nice blitzes and to take out Odell Beckham Jr. and Saquon Barkley in that game. And they have a winnable game next week at Seattle. So they could be a surprise 2-1. 23 is the Oakland Raiders. I think John Gruden is in over his head. You can make a case he lost them that game. They were very conservative down the stretch. They had a double-digit lead and they blew it. But I have to give them some love a little bit. Derek Carr looks like the guy from 2 years ago. So maybe they will be a little better than I expected. Their defense played well up until the Broncos came back. This team will miss Khalil Mack. And I'm going to keep saying it week after week after week. 22 is the San Francisco 49ers. My big takeaway, even though they won, it seems like Jimmy Garoppolo is regressing. Maybe that's because of the lack of talent around him, but he has not impressed me at all these first 2 weeks. 21 is the Houston Texans. They're 0-2, and they have to win this upcoming Sunday against the Giants. Bill O'Brien is a coach on the hot seat. And you know what? If the Texans lose to the pathetic 0-2 New York Giants, Bill O'Brien might be your first coach fired. This team is very talented. Deshaun Watson is a future superstar. J.J. Watt's back. Winnie Merciless is back. Jadeveon Clowney's great. Their defense has been okay. Their offense is a little anemic through the first 2 games, although they were close score-wise in those first 2 games. But big game for them on Sunday to get off the schneid. I'm a little disappointed in the Houston Texans, considering that was my Super Bowl pick in the AFC. Number 20 is the New York Jets. So much for week 1. So much for week 1. All the hype around Sam Darnold. I saw somebody write in a column that he's already the biggest superstar in New York sports. I think that is a big insult to guys like Aaron Judge, Odell Beckham Jr., even Saquon Barkley, Henrik Lundqvist, Kristaps Porzingis. And Jacob deGrom's another one. Noah Syndergaard even. That is an insult to all those guys. I mean, just one not even great game against the Lions. The team had a great game, but it wasn't all Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had a better statistical game, arguably, against the Dolphins than they did against the Lions, but there was a lot of turnovers in that game and failure in the red zone, and I have to place some of the blame on Darnold, even though their defense obviously wasn't great, and their offensive line isn't good either. I'm not a huge Todd Bowles fan. So, yeah, a little bit of a letdown for the Jets, and they have a big one on Thursday night against the Browns. 19 is the Tennessee Titans. I'm not buying Blaine Gabbert. He quarterbacked them to a win against Houston. They need Marcus Mariota if they want to be a contender. 18 is the Miami Dolphins. Are they better than we think? So far, so good, and they have a glorious chance to go 3-0 with the Oakland Raiders coming to town, and it's a 1 o'clock game, and we know how it is when a West Coast team comes across the country for a 1 o'clock start. They're usually doomed for trouble. So, Dolphins are staring at 3-0. And I have to give Ryan Tannehill some credit. Even though he has a couple turnovers for the first 2 games, he's actually shown me a lot that he can play the position well. He has the bust perception from people in the media, but I never bought that even when he was a young quarterback. Yeah, his old coach benched him, but that was a long time ago, and I think Tannehill could even get better. 17 is the New Orleans Saints. My big takeaway through 2 games is they're not who we think they are. They should be 0-2. They look like a mess on offense and on defense. The Browns gave him that game. That's why I had the Browns below the Giants on these power rankings, and the Seahawks too, for that matter. The Saints are not that good right now. They can still make the playoffs and win that division. Carolina's 1-1, Atlanta's 1-1. Tampa Bay's a surprise in that division at 2-0, but how's that going to last? We'll get to them in a minute. But right now, the New Orleans Saints are not the team we think they are, and Alvin Kamara has regressed. 16 is the Tampa Bay Bucks. Fitz magic continues, and they have a wonderful opportunity on Monday night to go to 3-0 with a win over the tumultuous Pittsburgh Steelers, who I'll get to in a minute. Deshaun Jackson looks like the early favorite for comeback player of the year. This is just a great surprise that nobody saw coming. I thought this was the worst team in football coming into the year, and I thought Dirk Cutter was a lock for first coach fired. I couldn't have been more wrong. They have a wonderful chance to get the 3-0, in my opinion. 15 is the Baltimore Ravens. Too little too late last week against Cincinnati. they hung around a little bit, but it was just too late. I thought Cincinnati's fast start certainly helped them. It was big for the Bengals to do that. But the Ravens have an opportunity to bounce back this week with the game with a West Coast team and the Broncos coming to town in a 1 o'clock start. I already talked about that with the Raiders and the Dolphins. Number 14 is the Philadelphia Eagles. They probably should be lower. You could make a case that they should be higher. I put them here. They'll be much higher next week for sure, I think, unless they lose. Pennsylvania is back. The guy that would have been the MVP last year if he didn't tear his ACL, and probably the Super Bowl MVP too. I probably think that the Eagles would have won the Super Bowl with Carson Wentz. And this guy is an absolute star. And I think that this team will be galvanized by the return of their franchise quarterback. And they're going to just run away with that NFC East, considering how pathetic the other three teams are. Number 13 is the Chicago Bears. They're for real on defense. I'm not sold on that offense yet. Mitch Trubisky still doesn't look like a franchise guy yet, although I picked him to have a breakout year. But there's still time to go. But Khalil Mack has made a real difference on this defense. That was a great trade by Ryan Pace, even though they gave up a lot. But hey, they could be a surprise playoff team this year. Keep it up, Bears. It'd be good for the league if they're in the playoffs, because they haven't been in the playoffs since 2010. And they've gone through a lot of coaches and a lot of turmoil with that franchise. That would just be a great story if they were to find themselves in the postseason. Although it'll be a hard road because that division is great, especially with those top two teams that I'll get to in a minute. And the conference is pretty good too. Although I talked about the Saints. Maybe they can steal the Saints' playoff spot. Who knows? Somebody can, because I just ripped them a couple minutes ago. 12 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're a mess. There's no other way to put it. They are the biggest mess in the league right now in terms of turmoil. Antonio Brown missed practice yesterday, despite apparently joking on Twitter that he wanted a trade because of a fan calling him out. Le'Veon Bell is still not back yet. The defense is a mess. I think that's the worst defense in the league that I've seen so far. I mean, that Browns game, let's face it, again, here we go. It's the Browns. But Kansas City, that is a great offense, to be fair, but their defense looks so bad. And I think there's a real chance that they drop to 0-2-1 with the loss on Monday night. And that would just be a mess. And Mike Tomlin has to be in the conversation for first coach fired if they lose on Monday. We're talking about Bill O'Brien if they lose to the Giants on Sunday. But if Pittsburgh loses to the Bucks, that might be your first coach fired. That'd be funny because I was saying how I thought before the year that Dirk Cutter was going to be it. It might just be Mike Tomlin if this continues to spiral out of control. And Ben Roethlisberger hasn't really looked right either. Number 11 is the Los Angeles Chargers. People were talking about Anthony Lynn as a possible first coach fired candidate a week ago. He got a big win in Buffalo against the lousy Bills. So his job is safe for now. Joey Bosa's still out with an injury. He'll be out until October. 10 is the Denver Broncos. I just think they're lucky to be 2-0. I just put them ahead of the Chargers because they're 2-0. And they have a lot of good players on both sides of the ball. Their defense is very good. Love that pass rush. And something that stood out to me for Denver, Philip Lindsay could very well be this year's version of Alvin Kamara, a rookie running back that nobody saw coming, having a big impact. So if he turns into last year's Alvin Kamara, you heard it here first, Philip Lindsay. Number 9, the Carolina Panthers. It was just too little too late for them last week. I saw some improvement from week 1 to week 2 on offense. But like I said, too little too late for them last week. Great game for them next week as they host the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 8 is the Atlanta Falcons. Much better in the red zone than week 1. I think being at home certainly helped them. I think they shut up the haters, at least for another week. I just feel like these red zone problems always seem to occur on the road rather than at home. Great game for Matt Ryan last week. Big game for them this week as they host the Saints. 7 is the New England Patriots. Don't panic yet. I just think Jacksonville's great. I'll get to them soon. They traded for Josh Gordon, as we mentioned in the beginning of the podcast. This happens every year at the Patriots. They always seem like they start 2-2. Over the last 5 years, I feel like this happened. They start 2-2. Everybody panics. Everybody writes them off. But watch, they're probably going to be the 1 seed in the AFC and go 12-4 again. I think that's what I predicted them to be as well. So that's sort of funny. Number 6 is the Green Bay Packers. Let's face it, the refs probably robbed them of 2-0. But hey, they're good. They have not looked bad in these first 2 weeks other than when Aaron Rodgers was off the field in that first game against the Bears. But, goodness, I have to give Aaron Rodgers his due. He just shreds everybody. Everybody. He's great. He's probably the favorite for the MVP right now. Unless you can make a case for another guy who I'm going to get to in a couple minutes. But if Minnesota's kicker, or I should say former kicker, Daniel Carlson, made a couple field goals, maybe Clay Matthews and the refs wouldn't have come apart as scapegoats. Well, really the refs. Number 5 is the Minnesota Vikings. They replaced Dan Carlson with Dan Bailey, who was the best free agent kicker on the market. I'm surprised he wasn't signed before the season. He is very good. He'll make kicks for the Vikings. The Vikings are a good team. Like I said yesterday, I wasn't disappointed in Green Bay or Minnesota from Sunday. And I think these two teams are going to battle it out all year long. And it's going to come down to when Green Bay goes to Minnesota to take on the Vikings in Minneapolis. So it's going to be a fun race in the NFC North down the stretch. Number 4 is the Cincinnati Bengals. Are they the favorites in the AFC North? I'm tempted to say yes with all the Steelers turmoil. Number 3 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're my pick in terms of the most improved team from week 1 to week 2. Even though they won both games, they should have lost to the Giants. And then they go out there on Sunday and destroy the Patriots. Credit to Blake Bortles. Credit to Doug Marrone. Credit to that coaching staff. They did a great job against the Pats. So they deserve a pat on the back a little bit. Big division game for them this week as they take on the Titans. Number 2 is the Kansas City Chiefs. I said that Aaron Rodgers is probably the favorite for MVP. But my favorite for MVP right now is Pat Mahomes. He's been phenomenal. I ripped the Chiefs last year for trading up for him and called them out on wasting a first-round pick. But that's a mistake. I regret saying that even though he did not play last year. I just ripped them last year for keeping around Alex Smith another year than rather playing Pat Mahomes last year. Maybe this team would have gone further last year if they played Mahomes rather than Smith. So I thought it was 1 year too late to trade Alex Smith, although they got a nice return for him for a team that wanted to make a change at quarterback. And number 1 is the Los Angeles Rams, no doubt about it. They are who we thought they were, the best team in football. They're my pick to win the Super Bowl, and they certainly are the best team in football. Guess the lines for week 3. An interesting slate for the week. On Thursday night, the New York Jets are at the Cleveland Browns. my guess for the line is that the Browns are favored by 2.5. And they are deserving favorites, in my opinion, and they're favored by 3. So not bad. I have the Falcons as a 3-point favorite at home against the New Orleans Saints. And the Falcons are a 3-point favorite at home against the New Orleans Saints, so good job by me. I have the Kansas City Chiefs as a 7.5-point favorite at home against the 49ers. And the Chiefs are a 6.5-point favorite at home against the 49ers, so I was a point off there. I have the Dolphins as a 3-point home favorite against the Oakland Raiders, and they are a 3-point home favorite against the Oakland Raiders. I have the Minnesota Vikings as a 16.5-point favorite at home against the Buffalo Bills, and I hit that one exactly. Wow. I have the Eagles as an 8.5-point favorite at home against the Indianapolis Colts with the return of Carson Wentz, and the Eagles are a 6.5-point favorite, so I was 2 points off there. Green Bay at Washington. I have Green Bay as a 3.5-point road favorite in D.C., and Green Bay is favored by 3, so a half-point off there. I have the Carolina Panthers giving 4 at home against the Cincinnati Bengals, and Carolina's giving 3. So that's a good line. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars laying 6.5, yes, 6.5 at home against the Tennessee Titans. And Jacksonville is laying 6.5. I have the Ravens laying 4.5 at home against the Denver Broncos. And Baltimore is laying 5, so I was a half-point off there. I have the Texans as a 6-point favorite at home against the New York Giants. And Houston is a 6-point favorite at home against the Giants, so that was a correct line by me. I have the Rams as an 8-point home favorite against the Los Angeles Chargers in the Bowl of Los Angeles. And the Rams are -7, so I don't mind that line. I have the Bears as a 4-point road favorite at the Arizona Cardinals. And Chicago is a 6-point road favorite. I think that line is very high. But you could argue at the same time, it's not that high because the Cardinals are awful. Seattle hosting Dallas. I have Seattle as a 3-point home favorite against the Dallas Cowboys. And Seattle is a 1-point home favorite against the Dallas Cowboys. So a lot of Cowboys money coming in right now. I have the Patriots as a 7-point favorite in their game against their former defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, and the Detroit Lions. And New England is giving 6.5, so I was a half-point off there. And Pittsburgh at Tampa Bay. Monday night, I have the Steelers -3 at Tampa Bay. And Pittsburgh is a 1-point favorite. So a lot of money coming in on Tampa Bay. That's it for Guess the Lines, and that's it for today's podcast. I'll be back tomorrow ranking the NHL centerman, as well as doing my 2008 NFL redraft. I'll recap all the baseball action from today and look ahead to tomorrow's slate of games and what other else news breaks in the world of sports. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.